Hey, soccer fans, welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I am your host, Nick, and as the saying goes, new year, new Chicago Fire. We've got a lot of updates on what they're looking to do with their roster, potential player acquisitions, and additions to the coaching staff. Before we get into all of that, please be on the lookout for a link I'll be posting on social media alongside this show for a Feed the Fire fan Discord channel. Was created and monitored by one of our longtime listeners and friends of the show, Ryan. So that way you guys can all join, kind of form your little Feed the Fire community and keep the conversation going. So be on the lookout for that and jump on. But we're going to jump into all our Chicago Fire discussion today. As we discussed in our last episode, the Chicago Fire did sign Danish winger Philip Zinckernagel, which, by the way, I got to thank Ryan for coming up with a potential nickname for our new attacking duo here in Zinckernagel and Kuipers. Zinc, copper, brass. Can we call them Chicago's brass when they start scoring goals? Maybe put them in some sort of official looking uniforms, perhaps. I don't know. Let me know if you think we can workshop it a little bit. It's not a done deal. We got a few weeks before the season starts, but I kind of like it. Chicago's brass, zinc and copper, Zinckernagel and Kuipers. But anyway, quick update on his signing and his fee. In the last episode, I discussed that if he was going to have a transfer fee about what was projected on Transfer Market, the Fire would have to use a significant amount of their targeted allocation money, their TAM, in order to buy his contract down below the designated player amount. It turns out that Club Brugge is actually receiving an €850,000 transfer. That's what the value is for the player. And his contract runs through 2028. So that's 4 seasons. So you're able to take the transfer fee and his wages, spread that over the course of 4 years. That's what's going to be the cap hit. So the Fire did not have to use a lot of their targeted allocation money in order to bring it down because of the lower transfer fee. Be interested to see what his wages are, but still, it's not like they're going to be dumping $1 million in TAM just to pay down his transfer fee there and get him as a TAM player rather than a designated player. The website Transfer Market reported that, and they also reported that the signing will be complete on January 31st when the primary transfer window opens. So I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what they said. Also, in the last episode, we talked about how this is going to open up, or not open up, but preserve the Chicago Fire's designated player spots. And that's exactly what philosophy the Fire have continued. And we were hearing that, oh, great, now we're going to get a new DP winger. And then we're hearing, oh, great, they've made an offer for Gaetan Perrin, a French player, a winger. This could be the big DP. Well, people started looking at his stats and his wages and his transfer, and we're like, I don't know if this exactly fits the DP model. And then Greg Berhalter came out and made some statements that's saying they're still looking to sign 2 designated players. So, unless Greg Berhalter is the one that's going to get 4 DPs in MLS passed, this would put us over the top by 1. But what the speculation is here now is that Gaetan Perrin, this French winger, another winger, is that the Fire are going to be able to use their targeted allocation money, all that TAM that they saved, not having to buy down Zinckernagel. They can use that on Perrin now and bring him in as a TAM, targeted allocation money, winger, and preserve those 2 designated player spots. And just the fact that this is the talk and that this is the speculation and that this is probably the way the roster is going based on what we're seeing and what Greg is saying and kind of what people know about the league and the team, this is fantastic. We have a sporting director, finally, someone who comes in who has a full understanding of the roster rules and the salary rules and all the designations of players within MLS and can use it to the club's advantage. And I think Joe Mansueto is happy because he doesn't have to just start throwing money around. He can actually use some of the quote unquote Garber bucks or funny money, the TAM and the GAM, in order to kind of pay down some of this stuff, money that comes in from transfers, money that's allocated by the league, to the specific clubs, things of that nature. He's not just shelling out, $8 million, $10 million, $12 million from his checkbook to pay for some of these overpriced designated players in international transfers. Whew, long sentence there. So it's really good MLS business. I think it's really good organizational business from Mansueto's perspective. And it's good roster construction. And I think that's what the fans care about the most. It's good roster construction. There's a plan here to maximize the potential under MLS rules and what the Chicago Fire have on their squad. Now, getting back to Gaetan Perrin, an offer was made from the Chicago Fire to his club in France, Auxerre, probably pronouncing that wrong, Auxerre, and we'll see if that's accepted or if there's negotiations and the way it goes back and forth. As they say, you never take the first offer, right? But what we do know is the offer was made. Perrin is a French winger. He was with Auxerre when they were in Ligue 2 last season, had his best season as a pro then, 7 goals, 10 assists. He's only 28 years old, He's in his prime. He's 28 years old. But a 7-goal, 10 assist season last year in France's Ligue 2 helped his team earn promotion into Ligue 1. And so far in 16 matches in Ligue 1, or Ligue 1 if you prefer that, he's got 5 goals and 4 assists. So his skill set definitely transferred up when his team got promoted. And it should really translate across the pond, if you will, to MLS. And he should be able to have success out on the wing. And of course, with Zinckernagel on the left, with Perrin on the right, and Kuipers in the middle, would be just a fantastic way to kind of rebuild this offense. All right, looking at a few other notes here on this offer that was made. We don't know the exact monetary details, but it's clear that Berhalter is focused on the team's offense. Perrin would be the second winger he signed, and they're still looking for 2 more DPs. Perrin is not going to be the DP if they can help it. And realistically, I think one of those 2 designated players is going to come in the summer, perhaps both. Maybe they start the season with only Hugo Kuipers as their one designated player if they can't get the right talent in, the right person in before the season begins and the winter window closes. But I think their goal still is to get a designated player in before the season starts and then have that third DP spot over the summer to use to either shore up the defense or add that extra little bit of attack that they need to put them in trophy contention if they think they're there. All right, what else did I want to say about this? So what does this do for the Chicago Fire's roster? There have been a lot of great mock rosters and depth charts and things, and go check out Men in Red 97 Media. They continually update their roster chart with senior team, supplemental spot, homegrowns, TAMs, international, domestic. They've got it all broken down. It's a really great graphic. Go check them out. But what does this mean for our roster? So imagine, if you will, Chicago Fire fans, you're walking into Soldier Field for the home opener against DC United, and as your starting striker, you see Hugo Kuipers trot out to the center circle. And then on either side of him, you have Perrin and Zinckernagel as the wingers who are going to be serving him up the ball. As your starting central attacking midfield, you've got Brian Gutierrez. And alongside Gutierrez, you have another designated player, midfielder, ready to contribute to the offense. Maybe kind of a box-to-box guy, someone who can kind of play both ways, offensively, defensively. Let Gutierrez stay more up front and put pressure on the opposing team, and then this other midfielder can play a little further back. Did I just describe Weston McKennie? Possibly. Not going to buy into that anymore right now. We talked about how fun that would be in the last episode. But then let's take a look at some of their attacking options off the bench. You've got Barlow and Pareba as your backup strikers. By the way, I was going to save this for later in the show, but I just saw that U.S. international Matthew Hoppe is out of contract with Middlesbrough. He and the club agreed to a mutual termination of the contract as he was struggling to find playing time. So this was a guy who was on the fringe usmnt, who has 8 appearances and a goal for the U.S., who's played under Berhalter, who might be a good second striking option behind Kuipers. Just floating it out there in the universe to see what comes back. But yeah, so you've got Kuipers being backed up by Barlow and Pareba. You've got Zinckernagel and Gaetan, Gaetan Perrin, assuming that deal goes through, being backed up by Chris Mueller and Marin Haile Selassie. You've got Gutierrez and a second DP midfielder. Then you've got Kellen Acosta as your defensive mid, being backed up by Fede Navarro. I think that's a pretty solid midfield striking offensive kind of formation here. And I think it's one that we could absolutely live with as Fire fans in year one under Berhalter as manager, coach, and director of sport. But also, I think that's one we can kind of start to get excited about. I don't want to get excited all over again just to get disappointed all over again. But I am having these feelings of a deja vu, because we were here last year, right, with Kuipers and Acosta coming in. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't want history to repeat itself and just to get disappointed. But there are things here that are actually showing improvement from an organizational level, where last year we just saw it as a player acquisition level. They went out and got Acosta. They went out and signed Kuipers. And they were never able to kind of really fill out the rest of the roster. But they did get Gutman last year, who, speaking of Gutman, that's where I'm keeping one of my eyes on the back line here. Because as excited as I'm starting to get about the attack and the offense, I've got to have one eye on the back line. Because right now, our starting defenders, it's going to be Gutman on the left, Tehran, Jack Elliott as your center backs, and Suke out on the right. It does look like if that's who they're going to stay with, and then, of course, you've got Wyatt Olmsberg and Mauricio Pineda as backups, a couple of guys who, prone to injuries. I don't want to call them, I don't want to label them as injury prone, but guys who've dealt with injuries, same as Tehran. So maybe they want to keep those three guys kind of rotating in that center back position next to Elliott and Suke. But it really looks like the Fire are following the old adage, the best defense is a good offense. That's where they're focused on right now. And remember, the LA Galaxy, who just won their 6th MLS Cup this past season, that was their biggest weakness in the first half of the season. They had defensive problems, but they brought in the attacking wingers to really put the pressure on the opposing team, to burn opposing teams on counterattacks, and to even have a little bit more possession. So the Fire, again, best defense is a good offense, and LA Galaxy proved it can work last season. So maybe that's the plan that they are following. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Again, find me on social media at Glasshouse Soccer, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you can always email me, glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com. Now, one headline that got lost in all of the international transfer talk was that the Chicago Fire made another depth move. They have acquired the homegrown rights to midfielder Sam Williams from the New York Red Bulls, and then they ended up signing him to the Chicago Fire 2, to their MLS Next Pro team, their second team. It was reported by Tom Bogert that if they end up signing Williams to their first team in the future, Red Bulls will receive some form of compensation. I assume it's some sort of financial compensation or potentially some draft picks. Do the Red Bulls still value those? I don't know. What's cool about this move, there's a couple things. When the news broke, I received a message from the Designated Players podcast, and please go ahead and follow them at the DP Pod 1. On Twitter. They cover the entire league, but they are Red Bulls fans. That's kind of where their focus is for some of their episodes. But when this news broke that 19-year-old Sam Williams was moving to the Chicago Fire, they messaged me with a little bit of dismay and a little bit of, kind of funny anger, like, how dare you steal another one of our greats? Like, you took Tom Barlow from us and now you're taking Sam Williams. You took our present and our future. Grr. That was kind of the vibe that I got from them. And I loved it. And I love the banter, and I love going back and forth with them about Tom Starlow, not just Barlow, a nickname they gave to me for that. But really, it does show that this was a piece that Red Bulls fans in the know were excited about. Now he's coming over to the Chicago Fire. Now, a little bit about Sam Williams, 19-year-old midfielder, played 2 seasons with Red Bulls 2. And then for the last year or two, he's been playing with University of North Carolina, been a big part of their squad there. And we know North Carolina is a collegiate soccer powerhouse. So the guy's came up in a good academy, got his opportunities with Red Bull 2, went to a major soccer powerhouse in college, and now just signed a deal with Chicago Fire 2. So it's the other part of this is that it's a great signing. And if you look at it in the context of the Fire promoting Glasgow and Bareba to the first team, investing in the super draft, acquiring these academy level products, it shows the club is already starting to follow through on its goal to establish a pipeline from the academy levels all the way to the first team, that they want to fill out that U13 to U17, U20, whatever it is, to bring them up into the second team to advance them onto the first team. And there was a member of the Chicago Fire staff who at the recent the coaching conference in Chicago said that they want to put 5 Chicago homegrowns on the pitch. Like, that's a goal of theirs. They want to be able to do that. So that is phenomenal that they aren't just paying lip service to the academy and to the community and to the kids. Like, you don't want to go out and say, we want homegrowns to start on our MLS team, and then you don't. And then what are the kids going to do who are in your academy? They're either going to hate your team or they're going to leave. And it doesn't either way, it doesn't serve the team well. So it's great to see them actually following through and putting their money in their mouth, putting their money where their mouth was, walking the talk, talking the walk, whatever it is. The Chicago Fire are doing it. They're fulfilling their established goal of that pipeline and that talent pipeline, not just bringing guys up and selling them or moving them around, but actually wanting them on the first team. In addition to all the player acquisitions and movements, the Chicago Fire have made some technical staff announcements. And there was a press release on Wednesday of this week that talked about all the new staff that are coming on board. A couple names you're going to recognize as well. So the club has hired 4 assistant coaches and a director of methodology and talent manager. And the key here is, if you look at the backgrounds of all of these hirings, they come from all over American and world soccer. There is going to be a complete glut of ideas and new ways of doing things and things to try to implement here. So I don't think I'm going to say we're past the days of Klopas and Hendrickson not being able to adjust at halftime, not being able to game plan for teams, not being able to get the most out of their players at a training session because they're just kind of doing the same thing over and over when you're kind of a lame duck coaching staff. So I think those days are over. Again, you got to wait and see. However, the hiring certainly suggests that. Let's take a look at who they hired and their experience. So Felipe Zinckernagel, Tom Heineman, and Hector Jimenez have joined as assistant coaches. And here's that familiar name. Joe Bendick, former MLS goalkeeper, has been named assistant goalkeeping coach. I'm excited to see him working with Zach Thornton, especially with all the young Chicago Fire keepers in the pipeline. Also, Vincent Cavan has been appointed as director of methodology and talent manager. Let's look a little bit about these new hires. Felipe Zinckernagel, assistant coach. He joins the club from Sporting Club Portugal, where he served as the head coach of their B team for 5 seasons. Prior to his time with Sporting CP, he was an assistant coach for FC Shakhtar Donetsk in the Ukrainian Premier League, a club that often plays in Europa and Champions League competitions. And he helped them win a league title while also competing in Champions League and Europa League semifinals. So there you go. It was all there in the notes. He did play professionally, but has been coaching since 2009. He speaks English and Portuguese. So great experience coming over with Zinckernagel there. And apologies if I'm mispronouncing it and totally Americanizing it. If anyone's got a good pronunciation guide for that, let me know. Now, looking at Tom Heineman, the next assistant coach on Berhalter's staff, he was recently with the U.S. U15 youth national team, where he's been the head coach since 2002. They won the League A title in 2023. They won the CONCACAF Boys Championship, defeating Mexico in the final. So he's got the pipeline of U.S. youth here. That's another piece. See, they're putting all these pieces together, right? It wasn't the I'm going to get the guys who agree with me and do everything the same that we've seen with a lot of coaches. It wasn't the Frank Klopas, I just got to throw a staff together of coaches who are available to get through the 2024 season. There's deliberate coaching choices being made here. Heineman began his coaching career in 2007 after playing across multiple levels in the U.S. He was an MLS regular, 225 appearances in MLS, NASL, USL, and USSF Division II. Notably, he was with the Charleston Battery and the San Francisco Deltas, winning trophies with them. He had coached also at the collegiate levels at Belmont, Tennessee, Yale, and the Columbus Crew Academy. So a lot of varied experience there, but also that little bit of youth international pipeline piece. Now, Hector Jimenez, the next assistant coach, had a 14-year playing career in MLS. You might remember the name. You know the name. There's another familiar face, another familiar name there. Played for the Galaxy from 2011 to 13, played for the Crew from 2014 to 2020, and most recently played with Austin FC from 2021 through the 2024 season. He's a 3-time MLS Cup champion, back-to-back titles with the Galaxy and one with the Crew. He's got his USSF B coaching license, speaking English and Spanish. So this is now the championship pedigree part that has been missing from this coaching staff. A guy who can relate to players very recently, just finished his playing career. So that is another piece that has been missing from this team. Someone who's won trophies and someone who can relate to the current player. Also, we have Joe Bendick, assistant goalkeeping coach. He had played 15 seasons in the United States in MLS and Norway, 189 appearances in MLS for 6 different clubs, including 183 starts. Portland, Toronto, Orlando, Philly, Columbus, and Vancouver. He also started his career in Norway with Sogndal Football. Let's see what else. He was a U.S. Youth International playing at the U15, 17, and U20 level, and has a C license and is currently working towards his B license. So Joe Bendick, another great MLS experienced player who's going to hopefully continue that pipeline of great Chicago Fire goalkeeping. Finally, we have Vincent Cavan, Director of Methodology and Talent Manager. And this is an interesting title. I've never seen it on any of the job boards that I've ever looked at. But let's take a look and see what Greg Berhalter thinks methodology and talent entails. So in his role, Cavan will work closely with top talents at the club to help them reach their potential. He will also collaborate with the coaching staff to develop and execute the club's game model. He will report to Sporting Director Greg Broughton. Joins the Fire from the U.S. men's national team, where he was an assistant coach on Berhalter's staff and helped the team win the 2024 Nations League title. Prior to the USMNT, he had various capacities with the Swiss national team, where he was a part of their 3 World Cups, the European Championships, and the Nations League there. So he's got experience at the international level, knows Berhalter from his time at the USMNT, experience overseas as well. To me, this is kind of like, you hear some corporations call them like change agents. These are the guys who are going to help your employees embrace new ideas and new techniques and things to improve them. Because as employees in a corporate setting, you find what works and you continue to do it. And change is difficult. So you bring in a change agent to help you see how you can improve and what all the benefits are to doing something new, whether it's a new manager bringing you new ideas or new techniques or some new product or some new technology that can help you. And that way it's all positive and moving forward, and nobody, as they say, quiet quits, right? So what we have here, to me, is a bit of a change agent, but also it's someone familiar with Berhalter, someone he can rely on, someone who he has a long-standing and trusted relationship with as well, not to mention all the experience locally and internationally. So Cavan had played also 10 years in Switzerland as a pro, and has been coaching since 2005. He's got his pro license, and here's the cool thing about Vincent Cavan: he speaks 5 languages: English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. So on top of everything I just said, also going to be key in recruiting new players to the Chicago Fire. Couple other U.S. and international notes that I wanted to throw out there. Congrats to Brian Gutierrez on getting called up to the USMNT January camp. That is a camp that is all MLS players this year. 23 of the 24 called up are MLS players, and the 24th was formerly MLS. He's unattached to a club. Go back and listen to my last episode where I break down that roster and all the fun there. Also, congrats to Sergio Orahel Jr. of the Chicago Fire, who was called up to the youth under 20 national team, the U.S. Youth National Team under 20s. And again, I mentioned Matthew Hoppe might be a fun acquisition rumor to start here as well. There is a lot of transfers and coaching moves going around in Major League Soccer. Too much for me to cover today. I'll probably have to do like a preseason roster update show, but go over to MLSsoccer.com, check out their transfer tracker. They've got tons and tons of headlines and moves and graphs and things that are in lists of players moving, so you can keep up with your favorite club and see what the other clubs in the Eastern Conference are doing to try to get better and who's going to be the stiff competition for the Fire this year in the East. With that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, talk about the show, spread it through word of mouth. We continue to grow here on the Believe Network, on YouTube, with shorts, with the podcast, and other ideas that are coming down the pipeline. But most of all, Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. And let's go Fire.